We also want to just take a quick look at how Kamala Harris is faring with a group that really could be pivotal, especially in the state of Michigan, which is Arab American voters. There was recently a focus group that was convened and wasn't great for Kamala Harris because every single panelist said they will not vote for Kamala Harris, and that at this point, given her support for Joe Biden's policies vis-a-vis Israel's genocide in the Gaza Strip, there is nothing she could do at this point that would win them back. Let's take a listen to how that went.
Who was voting for Donald Trump in 24?
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah. It's definitely not by Harris, that's for sure.
Who's voting for Kamala Harris here? Absolutely no.
No. Not possible.
There's nothing she can do or say for us to change our mind.
Who's voting third party in 2024?
Good chance.
So Jill Stein.
Most likely. It's also a possibility that some of us will just abstain from voting altogether, but we do know that that's not the best political strategy, you know.
Why are you voting for Donald Trump?
Because my main goal is to get someone who is actively funding a genocide out of office.
Is your vote for Donald Trump a vote endorsing Donald Trump, or is it a vote against Kamala Harris?
Against Kamala Harris.
Donald Trump has said he will reinstate the Muslim ban.
He said that last time.
He's said that he wants Netanyahu to finish the job.
Donald Trump said a lot of things his first time around that terrified me. The campaign that the Democrats ran was that Donald Trump hates us. I felt safe, though, in the country when Trump was in office. I don't feel safe right now with Kamala in office. So, I mean, that to me speaks more.
Pretty stunning. And we've seen polling among Arab Americans in Michigan and other swing states that suggests a majority of them may, in fact, vote for
Jill Stein.
Jill Stein.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've seen the Democrats actually launch their first ever ad campaign specifically against Jill Stein. So, you know, it's not surprising necessarily to hear these voters say, yeah, there's nothing she could do to, like, it's too much, it's too long. She had a chance to separate herself from this policy, and at every opportunity she's done the opposite. At every opportunity she's chosen to signal, no, I will do exactly what Joe Biden did. So, you know, if Democrats lose Michigan because of this voting bloc, they have no one but themselves to blame. Like, don't blame Jill Stein, don't blame third parties, don't blame Donald Trump even, you know. You have yourselves to blame for, number one, backing an absolutely immoral policy, and number two, you know, just completely ignoring what was a massive movement against this policy, and including, you know, huge numbers of activists on the ground, including a massive amount of energy, including, if you just look at the polls, like, overwhelming majority of people want certainly a ceasefire, but also to withhold weapons from Israel to end this horror that we've all seen on our social media feeds every day. So I'm glad that they talked to these voters, and I'm glad Democrats will have to look at that on their favorite network and understand that you don't get to lecture these people about who they're going to vote for.
But in reality, what happens? They're just going to run ads about how Jill Stein is bad. I mean, the Stein campaign, the anti-Stein campaign might be the most vicious that I've ever seen it. There's a New York Times hit piece out this morning. There's the Democratic ads. They've got Democratic activists now actively, like, trying to smear her every single day on the timeline. And this is exactly why. But as you said, it's actually on Kamala. If you look at the way that she even talks about the issue, here she is being asked in Detroit about Israel, Palestine, about Gaza, about message to Muslim voters. Take a listen.
How risky is it that you could lose the election?
Well, it is undeniable that it is something that everyone is aware of what is happening there. I speak publicly all the time about the fact that there are so many tragic stories coming from Gaza, and of course, the first in this phase of everything that has happened, the first most tragic story is October 7th, and what happened that day, and then what has happened since. And I think what's critically important as we look at this moment is, one, acknowledging the tragedy of what has happened in Gaza in terms of the extraordinary number of innocent Palestinians who have been killed, and taking that seriously and speaking truth about that. In addition, of course, to what I said about what happened on October 7 in terms of 1,200 innocent Israelis being slaughtered, women being horribly raped. And then fast forwarding to today with the killing of Sinwar, this creates an opening that I believe we must take full advantage of to dedicate ourselves to ending this war and bringing the hostages home.
I don't know if you caught that, everybody else, but what did she say? The first and most tragic thing that happened was October 7th. If you're a Muslim voter, you're hearing that in Detroit, like what are you exactly you're supposed to, if Gaza is your number one issue, like what exactly are you supposed to take away from that?
I mean, we're talking about a significant number of voters who literally have family members who are
in Detroit, yeah,
directly
exactly.
impacted, you know, who may have literally lost family members. And, you know, maybe I shouldn't harp on this, but it just really displays to me the outrageous double standard that she has never, to my knowledge, said anything about the proven, documented, systematic use of rape by the IDF against Palestinian detainees, for which there is vastly more evidence than that of systematic rape on October 7th. And I know these are uncomfortable things to say, but that's just the fact and the reality. And, you know, that narrative has been used over and over again by her and so many others to justify everything that has come after. That I think is important, even as it is uncomfortable, to call it out once again. And, you know, to point out on the other side, actually there is multiple, even the Israelis themselves at least attempted to arrest some IDF members for their rape of a Palestinian detainee. We have multiple independent reports suggesting this is not a one-off. This was a systematic policy of abuse within this effectively concentration camp that they have set up. And, you know, so I know a lot of, listen, I think the voters who said there's nothing she could do at this point, like I believe them, and I think that that's perfectly understandable position to take. And, you know, I can or others can say till we're blue in the face, like Trump would be worse, and I think that's true. Miriam Adelson is one of his top donors, roughly $100 million. She wants to just completely annex the West Bank. Saagar, you were pointing out Israelis are very clear on who they would rather have as president of the United States. Is like 68% say they would prefer Donald Trump. Bibi Netanyahu very clear that he would prefer Donald Trump on the off chance that Kamala Harris actually did something different than Joe Biden. But, you know, I think all of that amounts to not a lot when you're talking to people who really care about the issue, have been watching this, or may even have a direct personal stake in the region.
Yeah, like that woman who she was like, look, I'm just voting against that person and I want to punish them. So that's what I'm going to do. I mean, that's a perfectly understandable position. You know, like you just said, you can say to you, like, till you're blue in the face, as you said, like, well, if it's different, et cetera, but that's, you know, it's a different way of thinking, especially if you've got personal stakes. So she's got real issues. We did mention this about Elon. Let's put this up on the screen. This is currently going around. A funded PAC by Musk is currently micro-targeting Muslim people in Michigan and Jewish people in Pennsylvania with opposite messaging about Kamala Harris using zip code targeting. One on the left says Kamala Harris stands with Israel. That's to Muslim voters in Michigan. To Jewish voters in Pennsylvania, saying two-faced Kamala Harris stands with Palestine, not our ally Israel. That is crossed out.
Wish that one were true.
It's funny. Yeah.
Be a little more two-faced, Kamala.
Yes,
Let's see it. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a deeply cynical strategy, but it also reveals
look at that, right?
It also reveals that Elon Musk, at least his PAC, believes this is an effective direction and an important fissure within the Democratic coalition, and are doing what they can to try to exploit it.
Yeah, I don't think it's funny because it's actually probably more resonant on the Muslim part, but all the data that we have right now is that, you know, American Jews are overwhelmingly Democrats. They voted for like 60 or almost 70% for Joe Biden last time around.
Yeah.
I have not seen a single scrap of like large scale sample data that outside of like Bill Ackman and rich Jews work in finance, that there's been any sort of grand realignment.
Trump thinks of Jews in the stereotypical way that like Democrats circa 2016 were thinking about Latinos and Black voters of like, oh, you're brown, immigration must be your number one issue, or oh, you're Black, like criminal justice reform must be the only thing that you care about. Like he thinks the only thing Jewish voters should care about is Israel.
Right.
And that's, I mean, it is anti-Semitic to think, first of all, to associate every Jew with this out of control genocidal state is, in my opinion, anti-Semitic. And number two, just to collapse any large demographic group down to like a single issue, like, oh, you're one of those people, this is what you care about, is gross and, you know, and racist, I think, in my opinion. So, you know, which I also said when it came to Democrats stereotyping the same way. So yeah, he's of course wrong. And when you look at the polls, the majority of American Jews want a ceasefire. Quite a large number also, you know, hate Bibi Netanyahu, by the way. The greatest supporters of Bibi Netanyahu by religious group in this country are not American Jews. They are American evangelicals who support Bibi Netanyahu and whatever he wants to do, wants to give him carte blanche.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is part of why Donald Trump's coalition is very aligned on the issue of Israel. They're very pro-Israel pretty much across the board. There's a very marginal dissent. And, you know, their critique is that Kamala and Joe Biden have not done enough, have not given Bibi enough of a blank check. That's their position. But yeah, since there is somewhat of a fracture in the Democratic base, especially between Democratic elites and base voters, Republicans are, you know, trying to exploit that, understandably, as best that they can. And, you know, ultimately, again, it comes down to the actual policy and Kamala's complete unwillingness to break from Joe Biden on an area. And again, for people who don't really care about this issue, which is a majority of Americans who aren't going to be voting on it, you know, she could have done herself some favors too, just by actually breaking with Biden on an issue, since that's been something she's really struggled with as well, just creating some space and showing she's her own person. So, you know, it's a moral and political failure on every level is basically all you can say about it at this point.
Yeah. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.